Welcome to the Lifetime at Work podcast, episode 24. My name is Greg Martin, a guy navigating a life in finance on Bay Street, while also being an entrepreneur, which has made me realize the journey to find the perfect job is kind of never ending. So in my spare time, I record this podcast where I like to explore other people and their careers. I talk to people from all backgrounds to tell the real stories about their jobs and why they do them. For you, it's a chance to meet different people, and if I'm doing my job right, who knows? Their stories may inspire you and your life and your future career in some way. And in this episode, we're talking about engineering, the type of modern day software and technology engineers that create things, new and cool things. Let's play the intro music and get going. If you're a fan of the podcast, head over to lifetimeatwork.com to see all the past episodes, and there you can find quick links to subscribe to wherever you can watch this podcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, you name it, Google. And this episode is brought to you by Farmer Prepared Meals. It is that Ontario-based prepared meals company I'm always telling you about and I'm a big part of. If you go to farmr.ca, you can check out what we've got going on. There's taco kits and flatbreads and all these great things. They arrive frozen and are super easy to make into whatever meal of the week you need help with and quickly. So check out farmr.ca for the best prepared meals in town. In this week's podcast, I'm talking to a guy by the name of Adrien Beyk. He's a young guy who started a career in engineering after going to university and sort of realized pretty quickly that there was this big disconnect between university and what was being taught and what he felt like he really needed in the real world to do a great job, I guess, or to be kind of that modern engineer, the one that creates things and does really cool things and creates companies and inventions and apps and software and all that. And so we talk about that. And then we sort of get into a little bit about philosophy and his perspective on it. But then also we talk about what we're trying to go for here. Like, what are we trying to create by becoming entrepreneurs, by creating products, by getting out there in the world and really putting our knowledge and all those 2 cents to better use. So that's kind of all the intro you really need, other than his company is really cool. The one that he created, it's a company called Quantavici, and he basically designed these wearable gloves and socks, and it's a beginning of a whole line of these items that you can heat. You could control them with your phone and control the temperature. So they're really cool. I want some. I'm probably gonna get some because how could I not? They're really neat design, but you can see that the engineering and the just all that would take to kind of create something like that is really cool and just not something you could ever really teach in school or really ever appreciate until you do it, because it's a cool thing. Like, how would you even go about doing that? I don't know. Anyway, so here's my interview with Adrien Beyk. He can give you a little bit of background on that and what he thinks about the world of engineering today. Well, Adrien, welcome to the Lifetime at Work podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Why don't you start by giving a quick 2 minutes or 1 minute background on who you are, what you do, and where you've come from?
Absolutely. So, I've always been obsessed with creating things, whether it's music, whether it is just painting something or electronics. Electronics is amazing because the amount of complexity and how far you can get with creativity. And the first product I ever launched was a full image editing software suite back when I was 15 years old. And I released it. I had no idea about launching products. I released it. It got a few million downloads. It was a great motivation. It felt great to see so many people enjoying something that I built and finding it productive, useful. So from there on, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is amazing. And so I went to study engineering at Ryerson University. Turns out studying engineering is not the best way to fulfill your creative needs. And then I finished it. I worked with a few different tech startups from Toronto to New York City. handling the full cycle of projects on the engineering aspect, specifically software and some hardware. And then in 2017, I began working on a smart heated wearable project. At the time, my friend had been suffering from migraine attacks that were so painful that were disabling her from going to school or having a regular job. So, she had been trying different ways to deal with it, therapeutics, medicine. The only thing that helped in her case was heated wearables. So, that got me thinking, what does it take to make this amazing idea of heated wearables something that's practical for everyone? And that's where I got started. There was a lot missing in the heated wearable industry. There was a huge gap, and since 2017, I gave myself the mission of really solving this problem. So that's what I've been up to since then.
Yeah, it's a cool. So yeah, you're, I guess, an engineer by background and like to create things. And so this is, I think, definitely as a Canadian, a very cool product. Basically, there's gloves and socks and other things that basically are heated, but they're you can control them with your phone. And they right, like that's kind of the sales pitch. But they're really cool.
Yeah, exactly. You're naturally approaching a future where software is going to be a part of everything. We already see it, even the light bulbs have software. And something as sensitive as your apparel, something you put on, especially when it has to have a proper function of dealing with the cold, for example, being able to adjust the temperature is, to me, the way I see the future is that this is going to be a must-have feature in our clothing sooner or later.
Yeah, and I'll share with the audience. I mean, you can kind of talk about it, but as soon as you sort of see what it is and you go to your website, which is quantavici.com, you can definitely get a sense for exactly what we're talking about. And it does make, I don't know, to me anyways, it kind of seems like the future. It makes a lot of sense of just these as you call them, wearables, I guess. But yeah, these gloves. I guess it could be anything, really, right? You could have any clothing, really, though. But you've got kind of gloves and socks that can be heated. Yeah, it's cool. And you can adjust the temperature. Like that's as you think about like the future and our future clothing and how you were going to advance it. This is kind of something that just sort of fits in, I feel like.
So. Yeah, and I always say this is just the beginning. We've added software to your clothing, so we are already able to push updates to these gloves and socks. And one might ask, like, it kind of sounds like a gimmicky thing, like smart socks. Why do I need my socks to be smart? But the way this happened was that we didn't start the company with the idea of smart socks. As I said, first we were looking at heated hats because that really helps people with migraine, specifically the type of migraine that is triggered by cold weather. And then, if you want to do anything right in life, you have to listen to the data. You have to see what the universe is telling you. And we did a soft launch, and the soft launch really showed us that the gloves and socks is where the market demand is. And we back in 2018 that we were prototyping, we saw that people are not really happy with regular heated wearables. There's a lot of shortcomings. The battery life, the features they offer, they don't have proper temperature selection. They don't sense the temperature and regulate the heat. So to make all of this happen, to address all of that, we really had to make it smarter. There was no way around it. And now we have all of these cool features like anti-lost notification or night visibility light, and the list goes on. And again, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, it's cool. So let's go back a bit to figure out like how you kind of got here in creating a product like that, because it does sound challenging for me to
Sure.
kind of wrap my head around it. But you went, I mean, obviously you had an interest in this. You wanted to create products, and so you went to engineering school to study. Like what did you kind of get out of that then in terms of going to Ryerson, getting an engineering degree? Like how was that helpful in giving you the background to launch like a high tech product kind of like this?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm gonna be super honest because the reason I'm here is to create value for the listeners and not just like say what I think sounds right. If I'm being super honest, like engineering or getting any, you hear this from entrepreneurs all around the world, whether small entrepreneurs or big timers, studying engineering or getting any type of degree nowadays is quite redundant. Like you're just look at the curriculum they offer. Excuse me. And they are there are so many material that are completely unnecessary to study. For example, I had to take chemistry 3 times to be able to pass it, and it just tells you how much difficulty I had with this course. And my major specifically was computer engineering. So longest answer short, there is there isn't much that my degree in engineering helped me with. Really, if I'm being honest, I don't want the listeners who are interested in starting up a hardware company like Quantavici to be overwhelmed and think, "Oh, I have to go get my degree in engineering." No, do not do that. That's exactly what you don't do. We have these amazing tools. Just it might take you a simple 20-minute YouTube video teaching you how to use an Arduino, just a basic microcontroller to, for example, control LEDs or make a MVP and a minimum viable product of your project. And the thing that I am really thankful from Ryerson is 3 things actually. They from the beginning they were always really supportive of students who like to come up with new ideas. Maybe your prof in chemistry class is not going to care if you have an idea for, I don't know, like um, IoT smart home ideas,
Yeah.
but there are profs who may not be your prof, but you can reach out to, and they give you their time and respect. They listen to you, and that's amazing. And that's just like number one thing. That's the basic thing. They have these great programs, for example, iBoost Zone or the Digital Media Zone or Fashion Zone. All of these zones, they have like people who are just there to help students develop their ideas of businesses. And the amount of support I got in terms of like developing my business plan, doing my market research, guiding me to the right people, other mentors who were maybe just 1 year ahead of me in terms of my journey. That was a huge deal in the success of Quantavici. And that's kind of where the value really comes from.
So you just think that the curriculum's out of date? Is that
Pardon?
or not applicable to like i.e. like not applicable to kind of the current world? Or could it be beneficial to some people? Like obviously they created
Yeah,
the engineering programs for a certain stream or for a certain just practical work experience. And it just doesn't tie necessarily though with the high tech kind of leading edge tech company kind of world. Is that what you think? Or
yeah.
yeah.
There are certain jobs that are really specific. For example, if you want to get into embedded engineering, there's a lot of uh, requirement on the knowledge of basics. Like any profession that requires you to know the very fundamental basics of something, then yeah, for sure, go for a college degree. But for example, if you want to, especially if you're a software engineer and you want to work at, let's say, a cool startup that is developing apps or any type of software, then you're not even going to learn those programming languages or tools at the university. Like, you know, uh, I spent 4 or 5 years studying engineering, computer engineering, and they kind of covered some Java, they covered some, I guess, Python, but we are approaching a economy where the skill-based career model is way more preferred than the degree. No one looked at my degree. They just saw that I had created Pixel degrees, that software I launched, and they were like, "This guy is self-driven. He's able to um, set his mind to something and go learn it. So that's what we want." And this is because um, the tools are changing so fast, especially if you have like a technical job, that if you show that you're self-driven, you are able to build up your own portfolio, then they're not going to care about your degree. They're going to tell themselves that this person has the skills we are looking for specifically. And I can get into more details about that for like the audience that's interested in software engineering. But yeah, it's really about the skills and the portfolio put together.
Yeah, it's hard, I think, when you're a young person, though, to know what you want to do. Obviously, for you, it was a passion thing where you said, "Hey, I really want to create something." You tried it when you were young, you enjoyed it. You're like, "I want to keep creating things." There's a lot of people though that have no idea, and they don't, and they, I think, sometimes just go to school in hopes that they would sort of find it, I think, or get led to it. And I think, to some of your points, probably the thing to do though is going to talk to people, even if they, or professors, whoever it might be, that aren't teaching you teaching you courses, but at least are available as resources to come through and find kind of that knowledge. But I totally hear you. Like, coming from the practical sense, I mean, it's very challenging sometimes to hire someone when all, you're just looking at this very academic background that they have and these courses that they took, and it doesn't necessarily, just because you got straight A's or just because you were a C student doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be good or bad at jobs for probably the world we're going into now, which is interesting. Like, it's a hard thing, right? It's a hard thing to necessarily know and guide people in, even from a young age.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You probably then attribute a lot of what you know then to kind of on the job practically doing things and needing, i.e., like, I want to solve a problem, I want to try to do something, and to do that I need to learn a bunch of things, and so I'm going to now figure out what I need to know, go learn those things to then build my product. Is that kind of how you've approached what you've done, and how you've gone about starting and creating a business?
Absolutely, that's exactly how. And honestly, there is no other way because, let's take Quanta Vici for example. Our products, we have smart heated gloves and socks. What does this really consist of? There is fashion design involved. There is industrial design involved for the button that we have, which is a smart controller. And then we have the app. It's an iOS app. It's an Android app. We have the firmware that's running on our embedded system. There is seasonality, there is marketing, there is PR, there is communication skills, fundraising, there is financial projections. You cannot, as an entrepreneur, you're not gonna just wake up today and be like, what, I have this amazing idea and I'm gonna go call some investors, they're gonna love it too, and they're gonna give me $1 million, and I'm gonna be able to hire engineers and financial advisors and marketing people. No, that doesn't work like that. You have to be a go-getter. You have to go and learn these things. You don't have to become a master in them. You just have to know the basics. Each of these things takes some time. There are a lot of talented, experienced people who are passionate, who will talk to you, who will teach you, who are willing to really guide you to the right direction. And there's no program in the world that I know of that could have prepared me for Quanta Vici's launch. I had to learn all of these things by myself, and um, it sounds complicated, but it really is not. As long as you're passionate about what you want to do, there are so many free resources. And um, I do tend to oversimplify things, and that's a naive perspective that I have at every project that I want to start, which is a good thing actually. I'm stupid enough to take on crazy projects, and I'm just crazy enough to follow through with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to simplify things to a certain extent just to get your point across. But
Exactly.
it sounds like, anyways, what you're saying is that yeah, it'd be incredibly challenging. There's so many things you need to know and learn, and the skill set is kind of never ending, I guess, depending on exactly what you're trying to do. But there's also the idea of the big corporate world, where you have just large companies that offer the security of a job. They offer, that training. They offer a lot of, the camaraderie of coworkers and all that. Why is that not for you? Why do you why do you think that? And I mean, you've done it a little bit in your past, but I guess are feel sort of more destined for the entrepreneurial angle. Why do you think that's like not for you?
Well, I would say three things got me started with my own projects. One of them was that, for example, my friends would tell me like, "Oh, this is a cool project, but you're never gonna finish it because you have ADHD. You don't focus on things, you don't follow through with them." And I was like, challenge accepted. And then the two other main things that really kept me going, and I think a lot of people will resonate with this, is that um, you go into a job, and no matter how amazing that job is, it might feel like golden calves to you, and that's kind of what happened to me. The way I run Quantum Vici is that I try to delight the heck out of the customers, from the packaging to the app. We even have Easter eggs on the app. And the reason that's a big deal is because we are on such a crazy short timeline to deliver these out, and the next winter is going to be is like right around the corner already for us, because it takes a lot of time to produce these products. So for me, it's a big deal to delight the customers. And then let's imagine that I'm working at a company that doesn't really care about that day. They are really focused on delivering a basic, for example, business solution. And that really doesn't work. It's kind of like having a musician that puts their heart and soul into making music, and then putting them in a corporate world where they are supposed to follow very basic guidelines to produce, for example, I don't know, like the sound of alarm clocks over and over,
Yeah.
and this kind of leads to the other reason, variety. For me, just waking up every day doing software development, as much as I love developing software and designing apps and user experiences, just being limited to that alone felt like being in prison. I really appreciate that I can wake up on any given day and start the day with a digital marketing meeting with my team, later talk to investors from different fields, later have a discussion on the production side, talking with Chinese factories, and then finish the day by developing some software. Like, this is literally how some days pass, and I love it. The variety and the exposure to all of this amazing knowledge. It's a blessing.
When we were chatting last, we talked a little bit, or you mentioned it a bit about a Japanese concept around finding. I guess it's fulfillment and purpose in life around the things that you do, and I wanted to kind of shift to talking a bit about that, and how you're thinking about it, as because you're pretty young. I mean, you've got a lot of other things to achieve and do, and probably have had time to think about how you put the components of your life together. But maybe do you want to talk about just kind of your approach and how you've been thinking about the components of your life and how they bring that kind of purpose and fulfillment to you?
Yeah, absolutely. For my case, I I have a master plan. It sounds so evil, but I have a master plan. For um, you know, the way I see it, the way I have planned everything in let's say 5, 10, 20 years, Quanta Vici and other projects that I have already planned out will come together, and you know, we are the way I see it, I'm a big believer in science. Like I'm kind of strict when it comes to thinking rationally and scientifically. Um, we always hear these talks about AI, and I'm a big believer in the future of AI. I do believe that what is known as singularity is going to happen, where AI is going to reach an intelligence level that is comparable or even higher than the human level of intelligence. And that's kind of what we'll have. That's kind of comparable to what happened when the internet, I can't say really came out, but like connected us.
Yeah.
And the world changed. You can't even imagine um, sending a letter to, for example, China. You could just call them on WhatsApp right now. So I have all of these things in my head, and I have a master plan. But here and there, some things really like I find some things on my path that really approve my devotion to my dreams and such. For example, this Chinese concept that you brought up, that we had discussed previously, Ikigai. Ikigai really says it's a concept that you reach when you it's like a Venn diagram, when the intersection of four different things happen. One is what you're good at, one is what you love, one is what the world needs, and the other thing is what you can be paid for. So if you're working on something that you're good at, you love, and the world needs and is willing to pay for it, then you reach Ikigai. And that's amazing to me. I came across this concept, and it was yet another reminder to me that I should not waste another minute of my life doing something that is not purely by Ikigai.
Yeah.
So even to this day, there are so many products, so many avenues that I could go that would be amazingly profitable, or I'm even good at, but it's not what I love, or it's not what I think the world really needs, especially with the future that we are heading towards. So, I'm really strict about this. To pull off projects like this, you really need to have your mind and soul devoted to it. Mindset is the number one thing in these projects. So Ikigai is the kind of rule I live by.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one because I think it's helpful to have some sort. It's kind of like a compass, and I feel like it's sort of like helpful to have a compass, or just like a set of principles of some things that you believe in when you're trying to make decisions. And it could be from some situation where you are trying to decide on, this job offer versus that job offer, or should I move here, or kind of the big things in life that you are trying to decide. And so this is one that says, okay, well, are you good at it? What do you love it? Can you get paid for it? And does the world need it? And it's, it's like, okay, you can kind of throw your major life decisions or your major, life decisions probably into this and say, okay, hey, what comes out? Does this make sense? Is this, relative to all the other things I can do or
Yeah.
my other decisions, does this sort of tie and kind of am I going in the right direction here? And so I think, when you brought it up, I think it's an interesting, way to look at the world and what you're sort of choosing to do with your life in many ways, right?
Yeah.
And so it's and to give you kind of that fulfillment. And so from your perspective, I mean, you said, did you then take this and turn it into a life plan to kind of give you each of those things? Is that sort of how you've sort of taken the concept of ikigai and kind of planned your life?
Um, I would say it's kind of the other way around. You know, I have these plans set out, and Ikigai is um, kind of helping me stay on track. So when I
Yeah.
came across this concept, I was like, this is amazing. Like, if I follow this, then I really stay true to my path.
Are you, is it, like for me, I oftentimes don't know. Like I don't have a life master plan really, because I feel like there are so many curveballs that can be thrown at you and different opportunities, et cetera, that make that sort of challenging to do. And so it's, for me to look like so far in the future just seems kind of challenging. Do you find that, or do you have just that's just your perspective on it, and you kind of need to have that all planned out so that you could be heading towards this goal that you have?
That's a very good point. Honestly, there is a really cool saying by oh gosh, I forgot his name. But this MMA fighter, he says like, you have a plan until you get kicked in the face, and that's really true in life. Even whether it's a daily plan or a weekly plan or a monthly or a life plan, you have this plan until you actually start to execute and things don't play out. And the concept of plan, if there is one thing that I've really learned all of this time, is that plans are made to be changed. You have, just like a GPS that has a stubborn driver and keeps saying recalculating, you have to keep recalculating your path. And I have a top to bottom approach when I design my plans and strategies. I first I write down the main goal that I have, and then I brainstorm all of the ways I can get to that goal, and then I kind of connect those elements that connect me to the main goal in the format of a timeline. So every Monday, I start the week by spending just maybe 3, 4, 5 hours updating the plans. Where are we going? Let's review everything. And this is really important because if you don't remind yourself of your plans, we are, in terms of evolution, we are the first species to be capable of planning at the level that we do. And at the same time, our brain is not designed to keep track of our life plan. When you wake up tomorrow, you are not going to be thinking about your plans. No one is. So that's why it's important to utilize the greatest technology invented, pen and paper, to kind of review the plans and remind yourself to stay on path. This reminds me of something that Jeff Bezos had said. Actually, like, here's a cool Easter egg, if you will. If you go to relentless.com, it takes you to amazon.com. And that's because what the website was initially called. And,
you are right. I just did it.
yeah, yeah. And that's because, one of the key mentalities that Jeff Bezos had launching Amazon was just being relentless, being persistent with your effort, being disciplined. And in his interviews, he always says that idea is important, but the main thing is execution. So if you're not willing to follow through, a lot of the times he says that he felt that he was pushing for no sane reason. And if you are working towards your goals, even if you're not getting results, even if your plans keep failing, keep going, because that's the definition of plan. You don't have to get immediate results.
There's like this concept of, I mean, we're Canadian, American Canadian dream, whatever. We watch a lot of their movies, so it kind of seeps into us. But this idea that the dream is, go to school, get a good job, you get married, you have 2 to 3 kids, you have grandkids, you work in a fairly steady jobs, maybe one, maybe many. You retire early and then go, basically retire on a beach, or something, some sort of equivalent. Do you think that has changed or is going to change? And do you think there's a new dream?
That's a really good question. I really need to think about it deeply to give up.
I didn't give you warning on that question. I just came up with it though.
That's awesome.
But I'll talk for a second on it. Well, because I think that there are people who definitely have that dream still. That is, they are kind of still going at and sprinting towards getting to that. They see the beach, they see that retirement, they see having the flexibility to just wake up in the morning and read books and casually go about their day and see that sort of retirement at whatever age as being the thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. But there are other people who, I don't see that as being sort of, the Jeff Bezos goal or whatever. I don't think that's what he's going after. There's something else there and different and potentially evolving. And I'm trying to sort of figure out, okay, what is that? And what is driving them? Is it, you're ever going to be happy? Is Amazon ever going to be big enough? Is it, what is, or how do you kind of approach it? I mean, is that kind of the new high tech modern dream of doing something different? And I throw that out there to see if you have a perspective on what that could be.
Yeah, I some things come to my head, with respect to this Canadian or American dream. Looking at it, something that really grinds my gears is that I see so many people just living in debt. I would say let's call it just Canadian dream because you're Canadian. So the Canadian dream, you can really get it. I don't know. Okay, so for me, there's no American or Canadian dream. For me, there are 2 versions of this. One version is a cheap, mass-produced version of this, which is kind of an illusion because of all the debt you're going through. And I see, even in my own friends, I see so many of them going under huge amounts of debt just because they love the idea of owning their own place, having a partner, having babies. And when you really talk to them, what's in reality, it's not a dream, it's a nightmare. Because when let's say you are in your 20s, let's say you are in your late 20s, you're like 27, 26 like me, and you've been working and saving your money. What happened with me was that I worked for a few years and I aggressively saved everything that I made. And that was because I wanted the dream. I wanted to have my own place. I wanted to start a family and just live that dream. But then I started looking at places with the down payment I had saved up. And I was like, oh my God, like I would love to do this, but these places that are within my price range are really crappy. And I would be living a half-assed version of my dream. And I wouldn't even be able to spend time in this place. I would just be at work because I have to pay off the mortgage. And at the same time, I'm losing all of my savings. So I'm going under debt. So what am I gaining? I'm just going to be at work for someone else. So that's kind of what got me to quit my job and not buy a place. I always say this. I invested all of the money I had saved up for the down payment of my house to start up Quanta Vici, and along with some other help. So going back to how I started this thought, you can either have a cheap mass-produced version of the dream, which is actually just an illusion because of the depth you're going through, especially if you're starting at young. I would say the reason I said it doesn't exist for me is that what I decided to do was different. I decided to say that my life is not for living a dream. My life is for living for mission, and that is to innovate and make people's lives better and do amazing things instead of just doing something that is so basic, just having a house, having a car, having children. I'm gonna have those too, but that's not really exciting. So,
Yeah.
and if you want to really commit yourself to getting anything done in life and making amazing things happen, you got to believe that it never stops. You can't be working as an entrepreneur for the hopes that it's going to end soon. That's not the right motivation. You have to say that there's nothing else in the world that I would rather be doing. This is my life. This is my present. This is my future, and I'm committed. Kind of like marriage. You're not going into a marriage with the thought of, oh gosh, when does this end? I want to be with other chicks.
Right. I don't know where to take that. There's a bunch of places here, but I a lot of that resonates with me to a certain extent too. I do think there is not, I don't know if it's a problem. I think if you believe that your goal is to buy a house and then to buy a cottage and then buy a nice car and you keep achieving that, I think you can be happy. Like, I don't think that necessarily is wrong, but I do kind of agree with you that at a certain point you may reach that realization that what am I doing it for, or that I am kind of trapped because in many cases you buy those things and then you pay for them. They're not things that you're necessarily sort of saving up in that traditional teach your kids to save up and then buy it. We kind of go the other way around. And then you pretty much don't have a choice. You're kind of then just, okay, I gotta stick to this job. I've got to stick to doing this for as long as I can, because I'm always going to want the next thing, and I'm always going to be trying to buy more and more. And there is this different attitude probably around some of the entrepreneur community, I think, as well, of just not necessarily being the goal, and it is trying to create products or do things that are I guess in a different way. And so
kind of like consumerism, right?
Like there's that whole there's that angle of like consumerism, and is that what you're after? And I don't know if there's anything wrong with it per se.
Exactly.
It drives certain people, but I also think that going back to what you were saying probably at the beginning relating to kind of education, we also don't necessarily educate young people on that. We sort of I think guide them towards that Canadian dream of, okay, study this, then here's the 10 types of jobs you can have, go get one of those, and then you're set, you're good. You're good. Just follow the path. And I don't know how many people really do that or really want that. In the end, I think there has to be off ramps and on ramps and just different ways of going about it. But yeah, I don't know. There's not necessarily one way to do it, but it's hard. I think the journey of trying to figure that out is a lot of what I'm hoping with this podcast and just generally talking about. I hope that it helps people through, because because it's not a straight line by any means.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing that I want to add is that you can, it's funny, Um, you can spend 5 years, setting your goals is really important. You can set your goal to be becoming a really good bartender in, I don't know, like in a country that you personally adore. And you could spend like 3, 4, 5 years and just really master mixing and just everything. And that's a beautiful thing, being a bartender. It's awesome. It's really fun. Nothing wrong with it. Or depending on your goal, you could say that I want to start a company. I want to, in those 5 years, I can, what I'm trying to say is that for many things in life, it takes the same amount of time to achieve something, regardless of the goal. So it's up to you to set your goals. And it goes back to Ikigai, is this what you love? Is this what the world needs? Is this how you can support yourself,
Yeah. No, you're saying I maybe throw in the 10,000 hours thing and say, hey, if you're going to decide on something that you're going to spend 10,000 hours on,
Exactly.
I think about it, I guess, and make sure it's the right thing. And
Yeah.
you're going to learn a ton by doing it, by spending those 10,000 hours, but you only have so many of them. And how do you, how do you prioritize? How do you make sure that what you're doing, what you've set your sights on is kind of the right thing? And it's hard. I mean, no one, um, really knows, but certainly what I get from you is you're an advocate on the sort of entrepreneurial route, as am I. I mean, I think there's a ton out of it that there's a ton that you get out of it, and totally agree with you on all the skills you learn and just the experience you have and just how every day is so different. Or
Yeah.
really, it can kind of, you're the boss, you can kind of decide what your day is going to be
That's
like,
amazing. I
or
gotta say, yeah.
or what you're going to work on, or and the stuff that you hate or don't like, you hire someone to do it, or you just don't do it because it's not important or not valuable, and so it's a way of going about it, but it's a different, there's also stressors, and it's a different way of about going through life. And I think, yeah, the more we can do to tell people just the story and what it's about, and this different approach is positive. Do you have then aspirations? I mean, how do you think, what's the best way? I feel like you've got a few YouTube videos, and you've done some things to sort of try to give the world a message beyond your product, but probably your face out there, telling. I
Yeah.
mean, what is your message to the world, and what do you want to convey to them, and educate people on, etc.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I haven't been really active on social media up until the launch. I've set up my Instagram page, my YouTube page, my Twitter, and I'm trying to stay active. And the reason I set these pages up is that I want speaking of the message, that my main message is that if I can do it, so can you. So let's do amazing things. That's my main message. With the content I share, it's for example, I recently finished publishing this short, not short, it's like around 1 hour YouTube series that is solely just talking about how to work with others. As an entrepreneur, that's the main thing. You have to know how to work with others, because again, the everything you need to do, you don't know when you're starting out. And there are people who do know it. And if you're not a people's person, if you're not able to find the right people for the job, if you're not able to manage, communicate, none of that works out. I can promise you it will not work out. And so I made this YouTube series, and without any filter, without any uh, objective to make any money, I just shared honestly everything that I used for finding people, for communicating with them, for managing the projects. And even I cover a recovery strategy. What if you spent a lot of money and you haven't received what you were promised, and what are the metrics? So um, that's like one of the content I recently posted. It's really the best way I find I can create value for any viewer is by generating content that I myself would have found useful from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So that's what I've been up to on social media.
Why not focus that energy, say, like on your business or other time? Why? Because there's so many. There's a lot, I guess,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
people now posting, videos. They'll, instructional things, just whether it be on YouTube or Instagram or any different platform. Starting courses. What do you have a view or a reason or a rationale that the people are just from the business world who feel compelled to tell the world about what they're doing, or get this information out there? Do you, like, why?
Yeah, I can think of a couple of reasons. One thing, just a very basic reason for it would be self-motivation. It sounds stupid, but like when you have people cheering you on, when you have people who are caring about what you're doing, it's amazing. I'm trying to be as transparent as I can with content which is progress. You always have your inner circle, you always have your friends, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, um, your partner, and they always tell you, oh, that's amazing, that's really cool, do this, do that. But um, the first time I posted a video and it got a few thousand views, and this was on TikTok, and I heard the comments. It was, that rush of dopamine. It's amazing, especially as an entrepreneur. As I said, the number one thing is mindset. If you are super tired at the end of the day and you're like, why am I doing this? And you kind of remember that what you're doing, this goes back to Ikigai. The world cares about it. It needs it. And they've been vocal about it. Then it's another drive. And, other than that, as an entrepreneur, it is really important to do self-promotion. There's no reason to kind of hide that. Putting yourself out there, sharing with the world what you're about, what you are doing. Um, it can, as I said, it can create value for people, which is amazing. That's my goal. I want to create value. It can help you build a network of people who are like-minded. And, as I said, from the first video I made, how to work with others, the main thing that really helps an entrepreneur grow is by networking, learning about other people, bringing forces together. So I'm also trying to build up this community of like-minded people who get super excited talking about ideas, plans, future. It's also human nature to want to share. That's why all of these social media platforms are working so well. In fact, one of the key things for going viral, according to YouTube themselves, is having a share statement. So if your video has a share statement, the chances of it going viral is more, because people love to share. And I'm just another person on earth who loves to share on what they're doing.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why Facebook and Instagram, whenever, has worked so well, is that people, whatever it is, they do want to share. They want to connect people. They want to tell the world what they're doing, and it doesn't change. There's not always something super interesting from the business world,
Exactly.
as far as a picture goes. So, like, hey, this
Yeah,
is what
yeah.
I'm doing at my computer today or on a call. But when you do have those moments where you do have something to share, it can get exciting because you're excited about it, and I think you're excited for the world to see and learn about it, and hoping that as well with the younger generation or people who coming after you or who are interested, maybe giving back to them, whatever it might be, whether that be direction or inspiration or just the knowledge is super helpful. So no, I think that's why people are doing it. But it's interesting to see sort of your stuff, and I know sort of as you evolve and sort of as your business evolves, there's probably more of that. I'm the same way. I go in and out of sort of posting things, but I want
Yeah.
to do it. I want to do it more because I think it is just a good, efficient way to connect with more and more people. If you kind of can put yourself out there. So this has been terrific. a bunch of topics here that I haven't really talked about, and the angle of sort of being being in the engineering world, but not that traditional path of working for the tech firms is pretty intriguing for me. Is there a good way, I guess, for you or for people to follow you, whether that be, the company or yourself? And I can link to that too as well on my stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was a delight talking to you today. Very amazing topics, and listening to the other episodes you've had, it's always so helpful. I've been on both ends. I've worked for companies. I have my own company, and the content you're putting out there is truly valuable. And for myself, um, I always go by Adrien Beyk, Adrien Beyk. You can find me on your favorite platforms, whether it's TikTok, whether it is YouTube or Instagram. On Instagram, I just post mostly meaningful pictures. And
Okay.
YouTube is basically where I do most of the entrepreneurial type of content. And, it is not my full-time job. It's just something that I'm passionate about. It's a side thing. So I cannot promise that I'm going to post every week or every 2 weeks. It's just whenever I have something to say.
Yeah.
And for Quantavici, check it out, quantavici.com. I hope you find the product interesting. Reach out to me if you have any ideas, any comments. I love to connect with everyone and hear thoughts and do amazing things.
Great. Appreciate it. Well, thanks again. Thanks for those kind words. And thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have a guest suggestion for the future, you can email me or go to lifetimeatwork.com. And there's a place where you can suggest a guest. That would be awesome. I'm always looking for new, cool, different people. So that'd be great. And I also would love a rating. If you could go to Apple Podcasts, is probably the best place to do it, and give me a rating there for the podcast, that would be awesome. And until next time, don't worry, be happy.